I'm often asked my opinion about the cause or treatment of some medical condition, but the question to instead ask is, what does the science say? What does the best available balance of evidence published in the peer-reviewed medical literature have to say right now? Welcome to the Nutrition Facts Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Michael Greger. Today, we answer a wide variety of your questions, like the benefits and risks of statins and whether or not you should get a flu shot. All right, so let us jump right on to questions. Okay, question number one. How fast do you get vitamin and C deficiency if you went on a full carnivore diet? Vitamin C is actually found in raw meat, but if you cook meat, you're going to destroy the vitamin C, which, I mean, you don't want to eat raw meat for food safety reasons. There was, I forget the scurvy studies. I do, in one of my books, I talk about the scurvy studies. It's just a matter of weeks when you start to get decreased wound healing, which is important. Collagen production requires vitamin C. And they actually, this was before ethics committees, but they actually took people and they sliced them open, study subjects, volunteered, maybe not volunteered, probably got paid. They sliced them to give the exact same amount, the exact same wound, and then they put them on vitamin C deficient diets to find out how much vitamin C you needed. And you didn't need a lot. I forget what it was like, 10 or 25 milligrams a day. That's not the optimal amount, but it was enough to help with wound healing. If you type in scurvy in NutritionFacts.org, that's one of the nutrient deficiencies that one may be worried about with the carnivore diet. But of course, the important thing with the carnivore diet is not, I don't think people are going to be like losing their teeth from scurvy. I'm sure they're going to eat some fruit and vegetables along the way somehow. But it's they're the number one killer of men and women is heart disease, right? So we got to decrease our saturated fat, diet cholesterol intake. So the last thing we need is more meat in our diet. Alberto asks, can I take green tea as a powder supplement in a daily pouch, or do you need to brew it? I don't like the taste of green tea. Okay, that's a great question. So it's actually healthier to have green tea as a powder rather than brewing it, because when you brew it, you get the water-soluble nutrients, then you throw out the rest. It's like if you boiled some collard greens, and then you threw out the greens, and you just drink the water. Now, that's pot liquor. There's lots of nutrients that leached out of those leaves, and so it's healthy, but you just threw away all the fiber and all the other good stuff. And so if you eat matcha, which is powdered green tea leaves, then you get all the tea compounds found in brewed tea, plus everything else that you would normally throw away with the tea leaves. So matcha actually tastes different than brewed green tea, so maybe you wouldn't mind the taste. You can put it in a smoothie or something, kind of hide the taste, or you could do it in little pouches or capsules or whatever if you'd like. My only reservation is if you're going to actually eat your tea, whether you're opening up a tea bag and dumping the leaves in your smoothie or taking matcha tea, is to use Japanese sourced as opposed to Chinese sourced, just because China was kind of late to the get rid of leaded gasoline game, and so a lot of the soil and tea plantations has a lot of lead in it, which is not a problem with brewed tea because the lead does not leach from the leaves into the water. But if you are actually eating the leaves, then yes, you'll actually get that lead. And so Japanese green tea has significantly lower lead levels. This is particularly important for young kids and pregnant women and people that eat a lot of it. So get some Japanese matcha, try it out, see if you don't mind the taste, and if you do, add it to your pouch or your smoothie or go crazy. All right, what else we got? Okay, Happy Hog says, should green beans considered a green or a bean? Actually, neither. Ha! That's funny. So they're in my daily dozen, they're considered other vegetable categories. So they're considered just like vegetables. So like, zucchini, even though it's green, is not a green. It doesn't have the same compounds like, nitrates and some of the other wonderful things that you'd find. No, but vegetables are healthy. So green beans are healthy, but don't have the nutritional properties either of legumes, actual dried beans, and don't have the nutrients of dark green leafy vegetables. But eat some green beans. Just don't, dip them in butter or whatever. Okay, are there any negatives? Okay, this is from Barb. Are there any negatives to storing whole flax, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, walnuts in the freezer? Some of them are okay at room temperature, but the freezer seems optimal to me. No negatives whatsoever. Yeah, store them in your freezer, store them in your fridge. Yeah, whole flax seeds can literally last months in an airtight container on the kitchen counter at room temperature without oxidizing. But something like walnuts, I think, are a little more susceptible. I think I store all my nuts and seeds in the fridge or freezer. So, yeah, go for it. Sounds good. Thanks, Barb. Okay, what else we got? Melissa loves my info. Wonderful. Stevie, 1313. It says, frustrating to see all us doctors, different opinions, talking past each other. Please invite these other people to debate on protein guidelines for longevity. Well, there's only one literature. So that's why you shouldn't listen to me or any other doctors tell you. We weren't born with this information. You have to demand the sources. So when someone makes a statement as life and death important as to what you feed yourself and your family, you can't just trust that where did they read about it in some Check It Out magazine? Do they read it on some blog somewhere? Or do they actually go to the peer-reviewed medical literature and see what the best available balance of evidence is? And if you do that, let's go like Institute of Medicine, most prestigious medical institution in the country, 0.8 grams per healthy kilogram body weight. That's like half what, these high protein people are recommending people eat. But that's the recommended amount. You go to all the leaders of all the longevity institutes, the Walter Longo or the Luigi Fontana. They'll tell you the literature is very clear on restricting one's protein intake down to recommended levels for health and longevity. But I totally understand how it'd be frustrating to hear so many conflicting messages, and my answer is stick to the science. And so that's why if you look at my videos, it's not me saying it. Here's the papers. Here's all the links to the papers. Download them, download the PDFs yourself. Make sure I didn't take anything out of context. And here's the science. Here's the graphs. This is the information I was able to glean. And if somebody else has some other information, let's see what their sources are. Show me your work. I'm not interested in people's opinions, which is actually the lowest ring of in the evidence-based medicine hierarchy. The lowest, the least credible evidence is what's called expert opinion. Right? Just because some doctor, no matter who they are, says something, is not considered very credible. You actually have to back it up with science. Melanie says, is there anything wrong with low cholesterol? We need to get LDL cholesterol as low as possible, at least down to a millimole, which is about 28 milligrams per deciliter. So there were theoretical concerns that, if we dropped our cholesterol really low, then we would, not be able to make steroid hormones, which are made out of cholesterol, and some other problems. But then we had these new classes of drugs like PCSK9 inhibitors that can drop people's cholesterol down into the single digits. And what happened? Nope, none of those those theoretical adverse effects arose. And so there does not appear to be negative effects. In fact, the lower the better for longer is the recommendation. We should try to get our LDL cholesterol as low as possible, at least down to around, we have evidence of benefit at least down to about 25, which actually is what's normal LDL for our species. Unfortunately, because of people's diets these days, the average is about 120. No wonder heart disease leading cause of death. And number 2 is actually dementia. Having a total cholesterol 225 or more, you multiply your odds 25 times of ending up with amyloid plaques in your brain 10 to 15 years later. What's good for your heart is good for your head. Clear out the plaque from the arteries in your brain and your heart by eating healthier. Hazmat exports. Who would want to export hazardous materials? But am I familiar with purple kale? I grow it in my garden. Are there any benefits with purple versus green kale? You are so lucky to have purple kale. I think it's also known as red kale, which has kind of a purplish tint to it. But absolutely, if I could get purple kale, if I can get red kale, I absolutely would do it. Unfortunately, all the garden critters eat all my kale, so I can't really grow kale. But I have a very fat groundhog that loves all my kale, but gets to it before I do. But yeah, I'd buy it if I could. So invite me over and we'll do dinner. That sounds delicious. And so what are those? So those are anthocyanin pigments that turn that kale red and purple. Those are the same kind of berry pigments that are associated with improved cognition and all sorts of wonderful things. So it's like you're eating berries with your greens, two of the healthiest foods when you do it together. So yeah, go for it. Fantastic. All right. Mick says those carbs aren't bad, but what if your body is carb sensitive? So, I mean, there's some, it's what are the sources of carbs? Can't say carbs are good or bad, right? Carbs are lentils or lollipops, right? Kidney beans or jelly beans. Just like, is protein good or bad? Well, it depends where you're getting it. If you're getting your protein from, from pork rinds, then protein is bad in that form. And same thing with fat. Where are you getting your fat from? Is it from Crisco, partially hydrogenated oil? Well, that is not good for you. But if you're saying, walnuts good for you. Oh my God, walnuts are good for you. All right, and that's high fat food. So, I mean, if you're carb sensitive, meaning presumably that you have, exaggerated blood sugar spikes from eating too many carbohydrates, well, then you need healthy carbohydrate sources. And so, you're eating your legumes, and, skipping the donuts and the refined flour products and the, refined sugar products. Yeah. I mean, so, you want to eat something sweet, eat some fruit, eat a sweet potato as opposed to, a candy bar would be my recommendation. Okay. Unknown person asks, what are my thoughts about honey and maple syrup? Are they healthy in moderation? Well, they're sugar. So is sugar healthy in moderation? Well, it depends what you define as moderation. It's funny, there was a study. I don't know if I've got to do a whole video on moderation, just surrounding this study. It's an amazing study, which shows why the food industry loves the term moderation. And that is they asked people what they thought moderation meant. Like when it comes to what is like eating chocolate in moderation sound like? And you know what their answer was? No matter how much chocolate people ate, they replied that what they were eating is moderate, right? That they consider whatever they're eating to be moderation. So if they're eating like chocolate 5 times a day, that's moderation, right? They could be eating it 10 times a day, right? So everyone defines moderation as what they're doing, right? And that's why the food industry loves it, because you can be like, oh yeah, eat meat, but in moderation, knowing that that'll translate in people's minds to eat however much meat they want to eat. That's amazing. Anyway, so moderation. What does actually moderation mean? Okay, well, sugar, excess sugar consumption is not just empty calories and displacing healthier foods, but we now know actually has negative effects, particularly at higher levels. And so, increase, even at low levels, increase the risk of dental cavities, for example. So there are, I would encourage people to not add to use whole food sources of sugar, like fruit, dried fruit, healthy vegetables like sweet potatoes. So in terms of the best sweetener to use, it would be a whole food sweetener like date sugar, which is just ground pulverized dates. So it's a whole food, just ground into powder. And so there's like a granular variety that you use for cooking. And then there's actually a powdered variety, date powder, which you can use in drinks. You can use in coffee or tea. It actually stirs up well and it doesn't have any kind of gritty aftertaste or whatever. So that's what I would. So whatever you do with honey and maple syrup, try doing it with whole foods instead. But, again, it doesn't matter what you're eating, your birthdays, holidays, special occasions. This is the day-to-day stuff that adds up. We have a remarkable capacity to bounce back from injury. So, you go crazy on your favorite holiday. Okay, Tom says, has there been any studies relating the pros and cons of fava bean tofu? Oh, how cool is that? You can get fava bean tofu. You can get pumpkin seed tofu. There's all sorts of ways. Evidently, there's proteins in different plant foods that all have that curdling quality that creates a tofu-like food besides soybeans. How cool is that? So is fava bean tofu? There haven't been any studies, as far as I know. But just looking at the nutritional profile, I presume it would be very similar. Of course, eating fava beans and soybeans would be better, the whole foods, since you remove a lot of the fiber, when you and some of the minerals and things when you in the production of tofu, but way healthier than many things you would eat instead. I'd have to look at the nutrition profile of fava bean versus soy tofu. You'd be missing out on those phytonutrients in soy foods, but you'd also be missing out on whatever's in fava beans. It's unique to fava beans. But there haven't been a lot of studies on the benefits of fava beans. There have been a lot of studies on the benefits of soy. Okay, Sillyhead, not 1, not 2, but 5, says, when recommending citrus peels, do you mean just the zest? What about the bitter white pith? And what about the seeds? Okay, so this is, I don't know where, this is probably How Not to Die, where I talk about the benefits of some of the citrus phytonutrients. So I encourage people to zest. So there's not much in the pith. It's in the zesty part. So yeah. So unless you have a really thin peel that, then yeah, don't worry about the pith. What about the seeds? Citrus seeds. I don't know much about citrus seed content. I do recommend eating watermelon seeds, and seeds of most fruit are healthier and sometimes contain a lot of nutrients. There's some seeds you want to avoid, like apple seeds, peach pits. I don't know much about citrus seeds. I don't think I've run across any studies on citrus seeds. So take it or leave it. So it's fine if you want to pick them out. Okay, where are we? Oh, Tiffany's back. What are my thoughts about Selexin, which is a lavender oil supplement, and inositol for OCD and anxiety? I do have studies on lavender for anxiety, but I don't think anything on OCD is. But it's not something I've looked into, so there may be stuff out there. But I would encourage people to do the whole food form. You can actually eat lavender flowers. You can make lavender tea. And then you can make preparations with lavender essential oil, as opposed to some kind of supplemental extract. That's assuming that the supplement company knows what to extract. And, do we really know what the so-called active ingredients are? All right. So, Sebastian says oy vey for some reason. And Angela says, hi. Do you have any particular worries about flu? I always worry about the flu. Flu is one of the leading causes of death for older individuals. Should my family get the flu shot? Yes, you should get the flu shot. It's more important for older individuals because the cardiovascular impacts of getting the flu. So the flu vaccine actually saves more lives than people die from the flu. And how is that possible? It's because it also because there's the dramatic increase in cardiovascular disease risk after the flu. Your blood gets more coagulable, more easily clotted, and so you're at a much higher likelihood of getting a heart attack or stroke after the flu. And so by preventing the flu, you prevent that increased cardiovascular risk, which actually may kill more people than actual flu virus itself, ironically. So that's why flu vaccines, particularly for older individuals, has such a dramatic benefit. For younger individuals, check out my, I have a section on flu vaccine in How Not to Age, all the adult vaccines. And I go the pros and cons to each one, the shingles vaccine, pneumonia vaccine, flu vaccine, and talk about the pros and cons, and you can make up your own mind. Yes, I mean, look, if you're a hermit and you don't come in contact with human beings, then you don't need a flu shot because you're not going to get the flu by definition. But if you're around a lot of people, then certainly I would encourage you to get the flu shot. It's not perfect, but it typically decreases your risk of getting flu by about 30%, and that can make a big difference. Okay, what are my thoughts on Dr. Esselstyn's papers noting, quote, also included cholesterol-lowering medications, unquote, and there's also being other studies showing regression with statins alone. Oh, okay. So, so noting that Esselstyn uses cholesterol-lowering medications when he thinks it's useful, and absolutely agree. So in my new book on LDL lowering, I have a whole section on statins. In fact, I think I have a blog today What day is it today? Yeah, I think my blog today happens to be on statins. So I talk about the pros and cons and who should be on them, who shouldn't be on them. And it's your body, your choice. You need to make up your mind based on your 10-year risk of cardiovascular event. How do you determine that? I talk about all the risk calculators, the pros and cons of each. I have one that I particularly like out of Europe. It's free. You can find out what your risk is and then what your risk would be if you added a statin or not, or if you walked more, or if you ate healthier, or you whatever. And you can tweak it around and you can be like, yeah, I'm okay with this risk, but I'm not okay with this risk. And you can do whatever you need to do to get the risk down to what you would like. Visit NutritionFacts.org/audio to see all the podcast episodes with descriptions that include links to their associated videos. Sources cited and other details are available on each video's page. Information about my books, How Not to Die, How Not to Diet, How Not to Age, and my latest books on Ozempic, and a new one just out on lowering cholesterol naturally is at NutritionFacts.org/books, and all proceeds from book sales go to charity. And sign up for our free newsletter at NutritionFacts.org/subscribe to stay updated on the latest bite-sized videos and articles. NutritionFacts.org is a science-based nonprofit, and everything on the website is free. There are no ads, no corporate sponsorship, strictly non-commercial, not selling anything. Just put it up as a public service, as a labor of love, as a tribute to my grandmother, whose own life was saved with evidence-based nutrition. Thanks for listening.